My beloved child. In the quiet hills of Cana, a humble wedding was taking place. It was a day of joy, a celebration of union, a time for loved ones to gather and share in the happiness of a new beginning. Yet, as the celebration carried on, a problem arose, a problem that threatened to overshadow the joy of the day. The wine had run out. In this culture, where hospitality and abundance were vital, this was more than just an inconvenience, it was a disaster in the making. But amidst the worry and confusion, Mary, the mother of Jesus, knew exactly what to do. With faith and confidence, she turned to her son and simply said, "They have no more wine." At that moment, the stage was set for a miracle that would reveal not only the power of Jesus but also his tender concern for even the smallest details of our lives. With his quiet authority, Jesus instructed the servants to fill 6 stone water jars with water. And then, with a simple command, the water was turned into wine, not just any wine, but the best wine. This, my child, is the first miracle recorded in the Gospels. It is a story that shows us the heart of Jesus, a heart that cares for our needs, whether they are grand or seemingly insignificant. It is also a story of abundance, of provision, and of transformation. What was once ordinary, water, was transformed into something extraordinary, wine. And it is in this transformation that we see the nature of God's miracles, including the financial ones we so often seek. The miracle at Cana is not just a story from the past. It is a lesson for today. Just as Jesus turned water into wine, he can turn your financial challenges into blessings. He can take what seems lacking and fill it with abundance. He can take what seems hopeless and transform it into a testimony of his provision and care. And this is where your prayer for financial miracles begins, with the knowledge that Jesus cares deeply about every aspect of your life, including your finances. When you come to Jesus with your financial burdens, you are not coming to a distant, disinterested God. You are coming to the one who provided for the needs of a wedding feast, who turned water into wine, and who delights in meeting the needs of his people. Your prayer for financial miracles is not just a request for material provision. It is an invitation for Jesus to enter into your situation, to transform it, and to fill it with his grace and abundance. Just as Mary approached Jesus with trust, so too must we come to him in prayer, trusting that he hears us, and that he is already working on our behalf. Mary did not worry about the details of how Jesus would solve the problem. She simply presented the need and trusted that he would handle it. This is the essence of prayer for financial miracles, presenting our needs to Jesus and trusting him to provide in his perfect way and in his perfect timing. The miracle at Cana teaches us several important lessons about financial miracles in our own lives. Trust in God's timing. The wine ran out at a crucial moment, and it could have led to embarrassment and shame for the bridegroom and his family. But Jesus stepped in at the right time. His timing is always perfect, even when it seems like the solution is delayed. In your financial life, you may be facing challenges that seem overwhelming, but trust that God's provision will come at the right moment. Continue to offer your prayer for financial miracles, knowing that his timing is never late. God provides abundantly. Jesus didn't just provide enough wine to meet the immediate need, he provided an abundance of the best wine. This is a reminder that God's provision is not just about meeting our basic needs, it is about pouring out blessings that exceed our expectations. When you pray for financial miracles, Believe that God will provide not just enough to get by but more than enough to bless you and those around you. Transformation through obedience. The servants at the wedding were asked to do something that may have seemed strange: fill water jars with water, when what was needed was wine. Yet they obeyed. And through their obedience, the miracle occurred. In your financial life, there may be times when God asks you to take steps of faith that don't seem to make sense at the moment. But trust in His guidance. For it is through obedience that transformation happens. Your prayer for financial miracles is not just about asking for provision, it is about being willing to follow God's leading, even when it doesn't align with your expectations. Jesus cares about every detail. The shortage of wine may have seemed like a small problem in the grand scheme of things, but Jesus cared enough to intervene. This shows us that no financial concern is too small or too insignificant to bring before the Lord. Whether you are facing a small financial setback or a major financial crisis, Jesus cares. He is ready to listen to your prayer for financial miracles and provide for you in ways that reflect His deep love and concern. Beloved, as you reflect on the miracle at Cana, I encourage you to bring your financial concerns to Jesus with the same faith and trust that Mary displayed. She didn't worry about the solution, she simply trusted that Jesus would handle it. And He did. In the same way, you can trust that Jesus will handle your financial needs. He will turn your water, your struggles, your lack, into wine provision, abundance, and blessing. But remember, prayer is not just about asking. It is about building a relationship with the one who provides. When you pray for financial miracles, you are not simply presenting a list of requests. You are deepening your trust in God's ability to meet every need. You are declaring that He is the source of all provision. And you are opening your heart to receive His blessings in whatever form they come. As you continue to walk in faith, I encourage you to remain steadfast in your prayers. Offer your prayer for financial miracles with the confidence that Jesus hears you, that He cares for you, and that He is already working on your behalf. Trust in His timing, trust in His abundance, and trust in His love. Before we close, I invite you to subscribe to our channel so that we can continue to explore these powerful stories from the Bible together. Each story, each miracle, is a testament to God's faithfulness and His desire to bless His people. And if this message has touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your testimony may be the encouragement someone else needs to trust in God's provision. May you walk in faith, knowing that the same Jesus who turned water into wine is with you, ready to work miracles in your life. With all my love and prayers for you, your faithful servant in Christ. 1. Introduction. The town of Cana was alive with celebration. A wedding feast, a time of joy, unity, and shared love, was unfolding. The bride and groom, surrounded by family and friends, were filled with happiness. Yet, amid this joyous occasion, an unexpected problem arose. The wine had run out, and in a culture where hospitality was a sacred duty, this was not just an inconvenience, it was a looming disaster. In the midst of the worry and concern, Mary, the mother of Jesus, noticed the need. With quiet wisdom and faith, she approached her son, speaking only a few simple words. "They have no more wine." Her heart was filled with confidence in Jesus, knowing that if anyone could resolve this situation, it was Him. She did not ask for a grand display, she trusted in His love and compassion to meet the need. no matter how small it seemed. Jesus, with infinite kindness, stepped into this moment of lack and quietly performed the first miracle of his public ministry. He turned the water into wine, not just any wine, but the finest wine, served in abundance. This miracle at Cana is more than a story of provision. It is a reflection of God's deep love for us. A love that cares for even the smallest details of our lives. This story teaches us about God's heart, His desire to meet our needs, and His readiness to provide in ways that we cannot always predict. In our own lives, we face moments of uncertainty, when resources run dry, and we feel overwhelmed by the challenges before us. But just as Jesus transformed the situation at Cana, He can bring transformation into our lives today. The miracle is a reminder that God's provision is not limited to the spiritual alone, it extends into our daily, tangible needs, including our financial challenges. Your prayer for financial miracles is an echo of the same trust Mary showed when she brought the problem to Jesus. It is a prayer that recognizes His power to transform, His ability to provide, and His deep care for every aspect of our lives. Just as the water was turned into wine, so too can He turn your worries into peace, your lack into abundance. I invite you now, beloved, to place your trust in Him as Mary did. Present your needs with faith, knowing that He is ready to meet you where you are. If this message has touched your heart, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more reflections on the power of God's Word and the ways in which He works miracles in our lives. And please, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your testimony of trust and faith could inspire others to continue lifting up their prayers for financial miracles with confidence and hope. May His grace and provision flow abundantly in your life, just as the wine flowed at Cana. In His infinite love, too, the development of the miracle at the wedding feast of Cana. Imagine the moment. The wedding feast at Cana was in full swing, filled with the sound of laughter, music, and the joy of families coming together. It was a celebration of love, a sacred union, and all seemed perfect until the unthinkable happened. The wine ran out, the jars were empty, and with them, the joy of the occasion began to fade. The hosts, embarrassed, faced the impending shame of not being able to provide for their guests. A shadow fell over what had been a joyful gathering, and the whispers of concern began to spread. In that crucial moment, Mary, the mother of Jesus, saw the need. She didn't panic or fret. With quiet confidence, she turned to her son and simply said, "They have no more wine." Her words were not a command but an invitation. She knew, deep in her heart, that Jesus would respond, for she understood His love and His power. Mary's faith in her son was unwavering. She trusted that He would intervene, even in this seemingly small, practical matter. Jesus, in His perfect wisdom, did not immediately act. His response to Mary was thoughtful. "My hour has not yet come." Yet even as He said this, He knew what needed to be done. With quiet authority, He instructed the servants to fill 6 stone jars with water. These were no ordinary jars, they were large, capable of holding 20 to 30 gallons each. As the servants obediently filled the jars to the brim, they may have wondered what purpose this served. Water was not what was needed, they needed wine. But they trusted Jesus. And in their obedience, the miracle unfolded. In the silence that followed, Jesus performed his first recorded miracle. He transformed the water into wine, the finest wine, better than any that had been served before. It wasn't just any wine, it was the best. The master of the banquet, unaware of the miracle, marveled at the wine's quality, praising the bridegroom for saving the best for last. The embarrassment of the hosts was averted, and the celebration continued, filled now with even greater joy and wonder. This miracle at Cana holds profound meaning. My child? On the surface, it seems like a simple act of provision, turning water into wine to meet an immediate need. But it was so much more than that. It was a revelation of God's love and care. Even in the smallest details of our lives, Jesus' action shows us that he is not only concerned with the grand, spiritual matters of life, but also with the everyday concerns that weigh on our hearts. The shortage of wine at a wedding might seem insignificant in the larger scope of life. Yet, those at the feast, it was a pressing concern. And Jesus cared. He stepped into their situation and provided abundantly. This act of transforming water into wine also symbolizes the way God works in our lives. He takes what is ordinary and transforms it into something extraordinary. He meets our needs, not just adequately, but abundantly, with grace and love. Just as he turned water into the finest wine, so too can he transform your circumstances, turning your lack into abundance, your worry into peace. This is the heart of our prayer for financial miracles, not merely asking for enough to get by, but trusting that God will provide in ways beyond our imagination, with blessings that overflow. In this story, we also see the beauty of obedience. The servants, though they may not have understood why they were asked to fill jars with water, followed Jesus' instructions. It was their simple act of obedience that allowed the miracle to happen. In the same way, when we bring our needs before the Lord, we must also be willing to follow his leading, even when it doesn't make immediate sense. Our prayer for financial miracles is not just about asking God to fix our problems, it is about trusting him enough to follow his guidance, knowing that his ways are higher than ours. The miracle at Cana also reveals the generosity of God's heart. Jesus didn't just provide enough wine to solve the immediate problem. He provided an abundance, more than anyone could have expected, and of a quality that surpassed what had been served before. This is how God provides for us. He doesn't just give us enough to meet our basic needs, he gives us the best. He pours out his blessings with a lavish hand, more than we could ever ask or imagine. Beloved, this story is a reminder that God sees you. He knows your needs, and he cares about every detail of your life. Whether you are facing a financial struggle, a personal challenge, or a moment of doubt, know that Jesus is with you, just as he cared for the guests at the wedding feast. He cares for you. Your prayer for financial miracles is heard. And just as he turned water into wine, he can turn your circumstances around, filling your life with blessings beyond measure. As you reflect on this miracle, I encourage you to bring your own needs before the Lord with the same faith that Mary had. Trust that he hears you, that he cares for you, and that he is working on your behalf, even in ways you may not yet see. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more reflections on God's miracles and how they apply to our daily lives. And please, Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your testimony of God's provision could be the encouragement someone else needs to keep trusting and to keep praying for their own financial miracles. May His love, abundance, and grace fill your life as you continue to trust in His goodness, in His eternal love. 3. Lessons on trust and surrender through the story. In the story of the wedding at Cana, one of the most profound lessons is not just the miracle itself, but the faith and trust that made the miracle possible. Mary, the mother of Jesus, plays a pivotal role in this moment. When the wine ran out, she did not panic. She did not question what to do. Instead, with quiet confidence, she approached her son, simply stating, "They have no more wine." There was no pleading, no elaboration, just a gentle declaration of the need. This is the essence of trust. Mary's faith was unwavering. She did not tell Jesus what to do, nor did she doubt His ability to act. Her words were filled with a deep, quiet assurance that Jesus would know how to handle the situation. This is the kind of faith God calls us to have, a faith that does not demand specifics, but one that trusts fully in His wisdom and timing. Mary's trust is a model for how we should approach God in our own prayers, especially when we lift up a prayer for financial miracles. We don't need to know exactly how God will solve our problems. We simply need to bring them to Him and trust that He will provide. In our own lives, we often face moments of uncertainty, particularly in our financial situations. Like the wine at Cana, our resources may run out, and we may feel helpless or unsure of what to do next. But just as Mary entrusted the problem to Jesus, so too must we bring our financial concerns before Him, with full faith that He will act. Mary's simple act of faith teaches us that it is not the magnitude of the need that matters, but the magnitude of our trust in God's power to provide. Your prayer for financial miracles begins with this same trust. A surrender of your worries into the hands of the one who cares for every detail of your life. Now, consider the role of the servants in this story. When Jesus instructed them to fill the jars with water, they did not question Him. They didn't ask why water was being used when what was needed was wine. They didn't hesitate or doubt. They simply obeyed. And it was in their obedience that the miracle unfolded. The water they filled those jars with was transformed into wine, not just any wine, but the finest wine. This is a powerful reminder that miracles often require our participation through simple acts of obedience. In our financial lives, we too are called to be like the servants at Cana. There are moments when God asks us to take steps of faith that may not make sense at the time. Perhaps He prompts us to give when we feel we have little to spare. Perhaps He calls us to trust Him with a financial decision that feels risky or uncertain. But like the servants, we are called to obey, trusting that God will use our obedience to bring about a transformation far greater than we could ever imagine. The servants did not know how or when the miracle would happen, but they trusted Jesus' words and acted in faith. This is the same trust we are called to have in our own lives, especially in moments of financial uncertainty. Our prayer for financial miracles is not just a request for God to intervene, but a declaration of our willingness to trust Him and follow His leading. Even when we cannot see the full picture, it is in our obedience that we open the door for God's provision to flow. One of the most beautiful aspects of this story is that the miracle at Cana was not performed in a moment of public spectacle. It was quiet, almost hidden. The guests did not even know where the wine had come from, only the servants and those closest to Jesus witnessed the transformation. This teaches us something vital about how God works. His miracles are often quiet, subtle, but always abundant. In the same way, when we pray for financial provision, we may not always see immediate, dramatic changes, but God is at work behind the scenes, transforming our circumstances in ways that we may not fully understand until later. In your own life, when you come before God with your financial concerns, remember the lessons from Cana. First, like Mary, approach God with trust, bringing your needs before Him with the confidence that He knows what is best. You do not need to have all the answers or understand how the miracle will happen, you only need to trust that it will. Second, like the servants, be obedient to God's leading, even when it doesn't make sense. It is through this obedience that miracles unfold. And third, remember that God's miracles are often quiet, but always abundant. He may not provide in the way you expect, but He will provide in ways that are far greater than you can imagine. The story of Cana is not just about a wedding or a miracle, it is about trust, obedience, and God's abundant provision. Just as Jesus cared for the small details of that celebration, He cares for the details of your life, including your financial needs. When you lift up your prayer for financial miracles, you are placing your trust in the one who has the power to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. You are declaring that no situation is too small or too large for God's hand to move. Beloved, as you continue to seek God's provision, remember that He is faithful. He hears your prayers, and He is working on your behalf. Even in the moments when you cannot see it, trust in His timing, follow His leading, and watch as He transforms your circumstances, just as He turned water into wine, with all my love and prayers for your journey. 4. Pray for a financial miracle through the story of Cana. When you come before the Lord in prayer, especially in moments of financial need, it is important to remember the story of the wedding at Cana. This moment teaches us not only about the power of God to perform miracles but also about the importance of trust and surrender in our prayers. Like Mary, we are called to bring our concerns to Jesus with faith, knowing that He is always ready to help. But just as Mary showed us, our prayers are not simply about asking, they are about trusting and surrendering completely to His will. In the story, Mary did not panic or try to solve the problem on her own. She didn't demand a solution or offer suggestions. She simply turned to Jesus and said, "They have no more wine." Her words were filled with trust, not desperation. She knew that Jesus would handle the situation in His way and in His time. This is the kind of faith we are called to have when we offer a prayer for financial miracles. It's not about giving God a list of instructions or expecting Him to act according to our timeline. It's about placing the situation in His hands and trusting Him to provide in the way He sees fit. When you pray for a financial miracle, begin by acknowledging that God is in control. Say to Him, "Lord, I trust You with my finances. I trust You to provide for me, even when I cannot see how." This is the heart of true prayer, not just a request for help, but a surrender of your worries, your plans, and your fears. It is an act of faith that says, "I believe You will provide for me in ways that I cannot yet see." The servants in the Cana story also show us what it means to trust in God's provision. When Jesus told them to fill the jars with water, they obeyed without question. They didn't understand why he was asking them to do this. And they couldn't see how it would solve the problem of the lack of wine. But they followed his instructions anyway, trusting that he knew what he was doing. And because of their obedience, they witnessed a miracle. The water they had poured was transformed into wine. In the same way, when you offer a prayer for financial miracles, you may not always understand how God is working or why he is leading you in a particular direction. But your faith and obedience are the keys to unlocking his blessings. Trust that when he asks you to take a step of faith, even if it doesn't make sense at the time, he is preparing you for a miracle. Your willingness to follow his lead, even when the path seems unclear, opens the door for his provision to flow into your life. Prayer, especially when we are asking for financial help, is about more than just asking for what we need. It is about aligning our hearts with God's will and trusting that he will provide for us in the best way possible. It's about believing that God cares for us deeply and that he knows what we need even better than we do. Just as Mary trusted that Jesus would provide, even without knowing how, we are called to trust that God will provide for us, often in ways that exceed our expectations. Surrender is a vital part of this process. When you pray, surrender your worries and your need for control. Say to God, I place my finances in your hands, and I trust that you will provide for me in the way that is best. This act of surrender is an expression of deep faith. It shows that you believe God's plan for your life is good, even when you cannot see the outcome. It is through this surrender that miracles happen. In the financial challenges you face, remember that God is not distant or unaware of your struggles. He is intimately involved in every detail of your life. Just as he was at the wedding feast at Cana, he knows what you need before you even ask. And he is always ready to provide for you. Your prayer for financial miracles is not just a request for material provision, it is a declaration of trust in God's goodness and faithfulness. It is an acknowledgement that he is your provider, and that he cares deeply about your well-being. When we trust God with our finances, we allow him to work in ways that bring true prosperity, spiritual, emotional, and physical. True prosperity is not just about wealth, it is about living in the fullness of God's blessings. It is about having peace in the midst of uncertainty, knowing that God is in control. It is about experiencing the joy of seeing God's hand at work in our lives, even in the smallest details. As you continue to lift up your prayers for financial provision, remember to trust that God will provide in his perfect time and in his perfect way. Just as he turned water into wine, he can take your current circumstances and transform them into something far greater than you can imagine. He can provide for you in ways that not only meet your immediate needs but also bring you into a place of greater abundance and blessing. Trust in him, beloved. Trust that he is with you, even when the way seems uncertain. Trust that he hears your prayers, and that he is working on your behalf, even when you cannot see it. And as you continue to seek his will for your life, know that he will provide for you in ways that reflect his love and care. 5. Applying the story to modern financial life. The miracle at Cana is not just a story from the past, it is a timeless lesson that we can apply to our modern lives. Especially in the realm of finances, this divine act of turning water into wine holds a deep and significant message for us today, reminding us that God is capable of transforming even the most ordinary aspects of our lives into something extraordinary. Financially, This miracle teaches us that no matter how bleak or empty our circumstances may seem, God has the power to intervene and bring about change, often in ways we could never foresee. In the financial context, many of us often feel like we are holding nothing but water resources that seem insufficient, efforts that appear unfruitful, or situations where provision seems impossible. Yet, the miracle at Cana reveals that God can take what is ordinary and turn it into something beyond our expectations. Prayer for financial miracles begins with the understanding that God sees potential where we see lack. Like the jars of water at the wedding, which seemed inadequate for the need at hand. Our resources, though limited, can be transformed when placed in God's hands. The key to this transformation is trust and obedience. At Cana, the servants filled the jars with water as Jesus instructed. Even though they couldn't understand how water would solve the problem of a wine shortage, they trusted and obeyed. This is the kind of faith we are called to have in our financial lives. When we follow God's guidance, even when it doesn't seem to make sense, we position ourselves for a financial breakthrough. It is through obedience that the miracle is made possible. This principle is vital in the modern financial world. We often find ourselves clinging to old ways of thinking or familiar patterns, reluctant to take the steps of faith God may be calling us to take. Perhaps we are hesitant to tithe, unsure if we can afford to give. Or maybe we are reluctant to pursue a new job opportunity or business venture, because it feels uncertain. But just as the water at Cana was transformed into the finest wine, God calls us to release our fears, trust His plan, and allow Him to work in ways we cannot yet understand. Through your prayer for financial miracles, you are inviting God to take what you have and bless it, multiplying it beyond what you could imagine. Consider the stories of those who have placed their financial burdens in God's hands, trusting Him to lead and provide. There are countless testimonies of individuals who have experienced profound financial miracles after choosing to surrender their control and follow God's guidance. One powerful example is the story of a small business owner who, after struggling for years to make ends meet, felt called to give a significant portion of his income to charitable work. Even when his financial situation was tight, he hesitated at first, wondering how he could afford to give when his business was barely surviving. But after much prayer and reflection, he decided to step out in faith and trust God. Miraculously, within months of making this decision, his business experienced a surge of new clients, and his revenue more than doubled. He credited this transformation to his willingness to trust God with his finances and to give generously, even when it didn't seem practical. This is the kind of transformation that the miracle at Cana points to. When we release our grip on our finances and allow God to lead us, He can turn our limited resources into an overflowing abundance. But it requires faith. And it requires a willingness to let go of the old ways of thinking that may be holding us back. In your own financial life, ask yourself, what are the water jars that God is asking you to fill? Where is He calling you to step out in faith, even when the outcome seems uncertain? Another example comes from a woman who had been burdened with debt for many years. She prayed fervently for a financial miracle, but nothing seemed to change. One day, during a moment of quiet reflection, she felt God prompting her to trust Him not only with her debt but with her entire financial outlook. She realized that she had been praying for a quick fix, but God was calling her to something deeper, to trust His provision and follow His guidance in restructuring her financial habits. She began to tithe faithfully, to manage her money with discipline, and to trust that God would provide. Slowly but surely, her debt was reduced, and unexpected financial blessings began to come her way. She often speaks of how God's faithfulness exceeded her expectations, all because she placed her trust in Him. This is the beauty of God's provision. It doesn't always come in the way we expect, but it always exceeds what we could have imagined. The water turned into wine at Cana was not just any wine, it was the best wine, served at the moment when it seemed like the celebration would falter. In the same way, God's financial provision in your life will come at the perfect time and in ways that glorify Him. Beloved, if you are facing financial struggles today, take heart in the story of Cana. Understand that God is not distant from your needs, He is deeply involved, and He is ready to intervene. But it begins with trust. Like Mary, approach Him in faith, knowing that He hears your prayers. Like the servants, obey His instructions, even when they seem unconventional. And most importantly, surrender your financial concerns into His hands. Your prayer for financial miracles is not just a request, it is a declaration of faith that God will provide for you in ways that far surpass your understanding. Remember, God does not just meet your needs, He blesses abundantly. When we trust Him with our finances, He turns our water into wine. He takes our efforts, our resources, and our faith, and He multiplies them beyond what we could ever do on our own. He blesses us not only with financial provision but with peace, joy, and a deeper understanding of His love and care for us. May you walk in this truth today, knowing that the same Jesus who performed the miracle at Cana is with you now, ready to work in your life. Trust in Him, surrender your finances to His care, and watch as He transforms your circumstances in ways that only He can. 6. Conclusion. My beloved child, as we come to the end of this reflection on the miracle at Cana, let us pause and remember the key lessons we have learned. At the heart of this story is the profound power of trust and obedience. Mary's trust in her Son, the servant's obedience to His instructions, and the resulting miracle all reveal a divine truth. When we trust fully in God and follow His guidance, even when we don't understand, He will provide in ways that surpass our expectations. This is the essence of our prayer for financial miracles, a prayer not simply for wealth, but for the provision that only God can give, rooted in trust and obedience to His will. In the story of Cana, we see that Jesus cares deeply about every aspect of our lives, including the practical concerns we face. The shortage of wine could have been a source of shame and embarrassment for the hosts, but through His love and grace, Jesus transformed what seemed like a small problem into an opportunity to reveal His power. He didn't just provide enough wine to get by, He provided an abundance of the finest wine. This is how He works in our lives. Beloved, when we trust Him with our financial concerns, He doesn't just meet our needs, He blesses us abundantly, beyond what we could ever imagine. The miracle at Cana also teaches us that obedience is key to unlocking God's blessings. The servants did not question Jesus' instructions, though they may have been confused by them. They simply obeyed, and through their obedience, the miracle unfolded. In the same way, when we offer a prayer for financial miracles, we must be willing to obey God's leading, even when it doesn't seem logical or when we can't see the full picture. Our obedience opens the door for God's provision to flow into our lives. Beloved, as you continue to seek God's provision, I encourage you to pray with perseverance. The path to financial miracles is often a journey of faith, where we are called to trust, obey, and surrender completely to God's will. Your prayer for financial miracles is heard by a loving Father who cares deeply for you, even when the answer doesn't come immediately. Keep praying, keep trusting, keep obeying, for in His perfect timing, God will provide. I invite you now, as we conclude this reflection, to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us grow together in faith, encouraging one another with testimonies of God's provision. Your words may be the very encouragement that someone else needs to continue their journey of faith. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, so that we can continue this journey together, exploring the richness of God's Word and His faithfulness in every area of our lives.